1. Nancy Argentino case. In 1983, WWE superstar Jimmy Superfly Snuka's girlfriend Nancy Argentino was found seriously injured in a hotel room in Allentown, Pennsylvania. She died shortly after from traumatic brain injuries, and while Snuka claimed she slipped and hit her head, the autopsy pointed towards signs of domestic abuse. In the aftermath of the incident, no charges were filed, and many believe the case was swept under the rug because of Snuka's rising stardom and WWE's influence. But the story didn't go away. In 2013, an investigative article brought new attention to the case, and 2 years later, Snuka was charged with third-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. By then, though, he was battling stomach cancer and reportedly had severe memory loss. In 2017, the charges were dismissed due to his failing health, and he died just days later. Although that closed the case for good, the stain that it left on WWE still lingers around. 2. JBL bullying allegations. Fans might remember Justin Roberts, the popular ring announcer in WWE for over a decade. He was bullied and beaten up as part of the story several times. But in his 2017 memoir, Roberts claimed that veteran wrestler John Bradshaw Layfield regularly bullied him during their time together on the road. Roberts claimed that JBL would also encourage the other wrestlers to harass him. In one instance, he crossed the line by orchestrating the theft of Roberts' passport during a European tour. This wasn't the first time JBL had been accused of mistreatment. Over the years, multiple former employees have come forward with similar stories about his behavior, ranging from verbal harassment to physical intimidation. The situation came back into public focus in 2017 when fans started a hashtag #FireJBL trend on Twitter after Roberts' stories circulated online. Despite the noise, WWE never took public action against JBL. He quietly stepped away from commentary duties later that year. 3. Chris Benoit tragedy. In June 2007, WWE star Chris Benoit missed a scheduled appearance, and fans started wondering what was going on. But no one expected what police would discover. Benoit had killed his wife Nancy, their 7-year-old son Daniel, and then himself over a span of 3 days inside their Georgia home. The news stunned the entire wrestling world. What made it even more disturbing was that Benoit reportedly sent strange text messages to friends, and his Google search history included topics like instant painless death. Authorities found steroids and other substances in the house, which led to speculation about roid rage. But an autopsy revealed that Benoit was suffering from CTE, a severe brain degenerative disease caused by repeated concussions. Some researchers even compared his brain to that of an elderly Alzheimer's patient. WWE initially aired a tribute episode, but when the details came out, they scrubbed all mentions of him from their shows and website. The company still refuses to acknowledge him and acts like he doesn't exist. 4. Shad Gasbards' heroic sacrifice. Shad Gasbard made his name in WWE as part of Crime Time, teaming with JTG during the mid-2000s. With his towering presence and good mic skills, Shad stood out as someone who connected with fans in and out of the ring. He was known for being easygoing, funny, and respectful behind the scenes, someone other wrestlers enjoyed being around. Away from wrestling, he acted in films, wrote comics, and focused on raising his son with his wife. Unfortunately, in May 2020, while swimming with his 10-year-old son in Venice Beach, a strong rip current pulled them into deep water. Coast Guards rushed to help, but Shad knew they didn't have much time, so he selflessly directed them to save his son first. Seconds later, another wave took him under. Several Coast Guards, as well as fellow residents like JTG, John Morrison, and Chris Masters relentlessly searched the area, but Shad was not found. His body eventually washed ashore in Venice Beach 3 days later. Shad was 39 at the time. 5. Eddie Guerrero's sudden death. Eddie Guerrero was one of the most beloved wrestlers of his generation, known for his incredible in-ring skills and charming personality. Coming from the famous Guerrero wrestling family, Eddie battled personal demons, including addiction to painkillers and alcohol, but successfully turned his life around by the early 2000s. He went on to win the WWE title in early 2004, propelling him into one of the biggest stars in the business. But the success proved to be short-lived, as on November 13, 2005, Eddie was found dead in his hotel room in Minneapolis. He was just 38. The cause of death was acute heart failure, due to underlying atherosclerosis, which is a buildup of fatty deposits in the arteries that restricts blood flow to the heart. WWE held several tributes in his honor, and his legacy continues to inspire new generations of wrestlers. 6. Brian Pillman's death. Brian Pillman was one of wrestling's craziest personalities during the 90s, famous for his loose cannon character that made it hard to tell if it was real or just a storyline. His famous rivalry with Stone Cold was one of the most defining moments of that era, and who can forget that infamous gun scene on television? Fans loved the raw energy Brian brought into his matches, as well as while cutting promos, but only a few knew about his health problems. On October 5, 1997, Brian was found dead alone in his hotel room in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was just 35 at the time. Fans were left shocked as Brian had just wrestled the previous day in a house show. He was perfectly fine and had shown no signs of any health issues. Later on, an autopsy revealed that he had a hidden heart disease named hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which thickens the heart muscle and causes sudden death without warning. Brian Pillman will never be forgotten. 7. The tragic story of Ashley Msaro. Ashley Msaro rose to fame after winning WWE's Diva Search in 2005, and she quickly became a fan favorite due to her punk rock look and energy. But her time in WWE was tough. In later years, she spoke about suffering multiple injuries, including concussions, and said she often felt pressured to keep performing even when she wasn't physically okay. In 2016, she joined a class action lawsuit against WWE, claiming they failed to protect her and other wrestlers from the long-term effects of head trauma. She also claimed she was sexually assaulted during a WWE-sponsored trip to a military base and was told not to speak out. Tragically, in May 2019, Ashley died by unaliving herself at just 39 years old. It was later revealed that she was suffering from severe depression, memory issues, migraines, emotional trauma, and symptoms consistent with head injuries. 8. Plane Ride from Hell. In 2002, WWE had just wrapped up a successful tour in Europe, and the roster was flying back to the US on a chartered flight that would go down in infamy. With an open bar, wrestlers were drinking heavily, and tensions boiled over into real problems. Ric Flair was accused of parading around in just his robe, exposing himself to flight attendants. Curt Henig and Brock Lesnar got into a physical fight mid-air, slamming into the aircraft door at one point and causing panic. Goldust, in a drunken state, used the plane's PA system to sing to his ex-wife Terry Runnels. Meanwhile, Scott Hall reportedly passed out so badly that people thought he was dead. WWE eventually had to take disciplinary action. Henig and Hall were both released shortly after, and the incident left a permanent stain on the company's image. Years later, when the story was featured in the Dark Side of the Ring series, it reignited outrage and forced several people to publicly address what happened on that flight. 9. Steroid Scandal. In the late 80s and early 90s, professional wrestling was booming, and so were the physiques of WWE stars. It wasn't a secret that many of them looked unnaturally massive, but things exploded in 1991 when Dr. George Zahorian, who had been supplying steroids to wrestlers, was convicted of distributing them illegally. In 1993, Vince McMahon was indicted by the federal government on charges of conspiring to distribute steroids to his performers. The trial was a media circus. Hulk Hogan was even called as a witness, admitting he used steroids, but claiming Vince never forced him to. WWE programming changed drastically during that time. Characters became more cartoonish, and muscular physiques were de-emphasized. In the end, Vince was let go due to lack of evidence, but the damage had already been done. The scandal forced the company to implement a more public wellness policy years later, and it still stands as one of the darkest clouds ever to hover over the organization's leadership. 10. Curt Henig overdose. Curt Henig was one of wrestling's most technically gifted performers in the 1980s and 1990s. He made a name for himself in WWE and WCW with his confident promos and flawless in-ring skills. Henig came from wrestling royalty as son of Larry the Axe Henig, but he struggled with the physical demands of wrestling, including chronic pain and injuries. Over the years, Henig developed a dependence on painkillers and alcohol, a sadly common problem among wrestlers. On February 10, 2003, Curt Henig was found dead in a hotel room in Florida at the age of 44. The medical examiner ruled his death an accidental overdose caused by a combination of cocaine and oxycodone. 11. Hulk Hogan private video leak. Hulk Hogan is never shy of controversies, whether it be the steroid scandal or the racist comments. In 2012, he was once again in the news when a private video of his was released without his permission. Hogan then filed a lawsuit against the website Gawker for invasion of privacy. The case gained massive media attention because it involved a famous figure suing a major media outlet. Hogan argued that the leak ruined his personal life and career, as WWE suspended him temporarily after the scandal surfaced. He received financial support from PayPal founder Peter Thiel, who claimed that he had been wrongfully outed as gay by the same website. After years of back and forth, the jury eventually awarded Hogan $140 million in damages, which led to Gawker filing for bankruptcy. 12. Earl Hebner controversy. Earl Hebner wasn't a superstar wrestler, but he was WWE's top referee, officiating some of the company's most iconic matches, including the Montreal Screwjob and the legendary Hogan vs. Andre the Giant bout. He gained respect from fans for standing firm and not being intimidated by the larger-than-life wrestlers. However, in 2005, Hebner's long tenure with WWE ended suddenly after an incident that led to his immediate dismissal. WWE stated that he was fired for selling company merchandise without authorization through a store he co-owned. Hebner has consistently denied those allegations, but a return to the company seems highly unlikely. 13. Enzo Amore controversy. In early 2018, Enzo Amore was one of WWE's standout performers. He held the Cruiserweight Championship and was famous for his fiery promos that divided the audience. Some loved him, others hated him, but either way, he got the crowd's full attention. But months later, serious assault allegations against him surfaced online. WWE said they had no knowledge of the investigation until the story blew up on social media. Enzo never informed the company about the investigation, violating WWE's zero-tolerance policy. As a result, he was fired within 24 hours. There was no farewell or storyline to explain his sudden departure, and WWE removed all mentions of him from their programming and network. This shows that WWE doesn't mess around when someone breaks their rules. 14. Janelle Grant accusations. This is probably the biggest scandal WWE has ever faced. Janelle Grant, a former employee, rocked WWE in 2024 when she filed a lawsuit against the company. She claimed that Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis abused her and treated her like an escort. Janelle says Vince took advantage of her after her parents passed away, offering her a job but then pressuring her into sex. She also says he set up group encounters with other bigwigs. According to her, she was treated like a pawn, used to help recruit other wrestlers into this twisted situation. What's even more shocking are the violent and degrading things she says happened right inside WWE's own headquarters. On top of that, she claims the company didn't take her seriously and tried to silence her with non-disclosure agreements. The ramifications were so huge that Vince McMahon was forced to step down from his own company. 15. Vince's hush money. In 2022, it was revealed that Vince had secretly paid nearly $12 million to 4 different women over 16 years to keep allegations of sexual misconduct quiet. One of the biggest payouts was $7.5 million to a former WWE contractor who said Vince coerced her into sex and later pushed her out of the company. None of these payments were recorded in WWE's official financials, which triggered an investigation from the SEC. By 2024, the SEC officially charged Vince for hiding $14.6 million in company-related expenses. He ended up settling the case by paying a $400,000 fine and reimbursing WWE $1.3 million. Although he managed to sneak back into the company for a short time in 2023, the bombshell Janelle Grant case forced him to step down again in early 2024. 16. Jeff Hardy's personal demons. Jeff Hardy's battle with addiction is one of the most well-known and public struggles in modern professional wrestling. Throughout the 2000s and into the 2010s, Jeff gained fame for his incredible high-flying wrestling style, and also for his ongoing fight with substance abuse. His issues with drugs and alcohol led to several suspensions from WWE, and later during his time with TNA. One of the most infamous moments came during a house show in Texas, where Jeff suddenly left the ring and walked straight into the crowd without saying a word. WWE officials assumed he had relapsed and immediately terminated his contract. They didn't even bother giving an explanation to the fans, and Jeff never got to say goodbye. Months later, in an interview, Jeff finally revealed that he was not using drugs. He even took a drug test to prove that he was clean, and he passed. His brother Matt also went live on Twitch and claimed WWE jumped to conclusions unfairly. Thankfully, the brothers recently made a one-day appearance on NXT, and it appears that WWE has started trusting them again. 17. Chris Kanyon's tragic story. Chris Kanyon was a talented guy who wrestled during the late 1990s and the early 2000s. While not a major player, he did his job quite well and the fans loved him for it. But behind the scenes, Kanyon's life was a battle that few knew about. He struggled with bipolar disorder and severe depression, mental health challenges that made every day like a fight. Wrestling took a huge physical toll on him, causing constant pain and injury, but it was the mental strain that hit hardest. After his career stalled, Kanyon found himself isolated and battling inner demons alone. In 2010, the wrestling world was shaken to the core when it was revealed that Kanyon had ended his life. He was just 40 at the time. An empty bottle of antidepressants and the drug Seroquel, as well as a note, were found near his body. 18. Owen Harts' death. On May 23, 1999, at WWF's Over the Edge event, Owen Hart prepared for a spectacular entrance as his Blue Blazer persona. He was supposed to be lowered from the rafters into the ring, but a tragic accident happened. The quick-release mechanism on his harness released too soon, causing him to fall nearly 80 feet onto the ropes and mat. The impact ruptured his aorta, and he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. What made it worse was the show kept going without telling the audience what happened. Fans only found out later, and a lot of people were furious about how the company handled it. Vince McMahon got a lot of heat for that decision, and Owen's family sued WWF. They eventually settled for millions, but the Hart family's ties with the company remained strained for many years to come. After over 2 decades of animosity, Owen was finally inducted into the Hall of Fame by his widow Marta Hart. 19. Del Rio's fall from grace. In 2020, former WWE champion Alberto Del Rio got arrested in San Antonio after a woman accused him of sexual assault and aggravated kidnapping. The accusations were serious and made headlines fast, putting a big strain on his wrestling career. Del Rio, whose real name is Jose Rodriguez Truquan, was charged with assault and threatening the woman. In December 2021, the charges were eventually dropped due to a lack of sufficient evidence to move forward. But the damage had already been done, and he failed to get into any major promotions. Del Rio now wrestles for various independent circuits, and there was even a video of him performing at a high school gym. 20. Ring Boys. In the early 1980s, WWF hired teenage boys to work as ring crew, known as Ring Boys. One of them, Tom Cole, later came forward with serious allegations. He said Mel Phillips and Terry Garvin sexually groomed him and other underage boys. Phillips was reportedly involved in some disturbing fetish-related behavior, and Cole said Garvin gave him alcohol and made inappropriate advances while he was still underage. The FBI investigated Phillips and identified at least 10 victims, but none came forward to testify, so the case didn't move forward. WWF took very little action at the time. The scandal stayed quiet for years until the early 90s, when Cole's story caught national media attention. Vince McMahon initially downplayed the accusations, but as pressure grew, Phillips, Garvin, and Pat Patterson resigned in 1992. While Garvin and Phillips never returned, Patterson was rehired after the allegations against him were withdrawn. Cole received a settlement of about $55,000 in back pay and briefly returned to work, but his 1993 lawsuit was never formally filed and was eventually dismissed. 21. Jerry Lawler's controversy. Jerry the King Lawler is a WWE Hall of Famer and a longtime wrestling personality, but his personal life has included serious legal troubles. Over the years, Lawler faced multiple allegations, including a 2016 arrest for domestic violence involving his fiancée, Lauren McBride. Both accused each other of assault during a dispute, though the charges were later dropped. Earlier in his life, Lawler was accused of underage penetration, though the case was dropped after witnesses refused to testify. He was also involved in a 1999 incident where he pleaded guilty to reckless endangerment following a dispute at an airport. In 2018, His son tragically unalived himself in a prison cell where he was being held up for driving under the influence. Despite these issues, Lawler remains a respected figure in wrestling and was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2007. 22. Chyna's tragic fall. Chyna was one hell of a wrestler with that muscular physique of hers. She was so strong that she competed with men and even defeated them on many occasions. Chyna created history by winning the Intercontinental Championship and becoming a central figure during WWE's Attitude Era. But after leaving WWE in the early 2000s, her life became filled with struggles. She wrestled with substance abuse, public controversies, and a growing sense of isolation from the industry. She even entered the adult industry for a change, but it didn't work out. On April 17, 2016, Chyna was found dead in her home in California. The autopsy confirmed she died from an accidental overdose of alcohol mixed with anxiety and pain medications, including diazepam and oxycodone. She was 46. Despite being alienated from WWE for decades, her death sparked a wave of tributes and finally brought long overdue recognition to her awesome career. She was then inducted into the Hall of Fame in 19 as part of D Generation X. 23. Heroic Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam Bigelow was a large man with a weird tattoo on his head, but he was surprisingly agile. After a successful run in WWF, WCW, and ECW, his life took a difficult turn. He struggled with health problems related to his size and injuries. He also faced legal troubles and other personal challenges that made it tough to find stability. In 2000, he heroically entered a burning house and rescued 3 children, but suffered second-degree burns all over his body. That made his already declining health even worse. Over the next few years, Bigelow's life continued to spiral out of his hands. In 2007, at only 45, he died from drug toxicity combined with heart disease. His death was ruled accidental. Bam Bam's story shows the harsh reality of how wrestling can take a serious toll on performers long after the crowd has gone silent. Few wrestlers have been as recognizable and iconic as Andre the Giant. Standing at 7 feet 4 inches and weighing over 500 pounds, he was a behemoth. But his extra-large size was both a blessing and a curse for him. Andre suffered from acromegaly, a condition that caused his body to grow uncontrollably. 24. Andre the Giant. Dubbed the 8th wonder in the world, Andre was already a megastar long before he joined WWF. His rivalry with Hulk Hogan is regarded as one of the best in professional wrestling history, and fans always filled the arenas to see him. But despite his widespread fame, Andre was slowly dying. Due to his massive frame, everyday tasks had become difficult, and his joints were aching to the point that he had to consume regular alcohol. An urban legend says that he once drank 117 beers in one sitting. The sad thing was that Andre was followed by fans everywhere he went, so he couldn't find peace. On the morning of January 28, 1993, Andre died of congestive heart failure and an apparent heart attack in his sleep, likely associated with his untreated acromegaly. Andre the Giant was inducted into the inaugural Hall of Fame class in 1993 as the only inductee. 25. Paige Scandal. In 2017, Paige suddenly blew up online, but not for wrestling skills. It was rather for her skills in bed. Someone had managed to hack into her accounts and share private photos and videos that included her with wrestlers Brad Maddox and Xavier Woods. This resulted in Paige having to deal with a ton of online hate and embarrassment that really affected her. However, WWE stood by her side and didn't take any action, as they believed she was the victim. She didn't have to perform any matches as she was suffering from a real-life neck injury at the time. Though Paige eventually returned in late 2017, injuries would cut her in-ring career short, and she was never the same again.